You are listening to Season 2 of the Humans of AI Stories Not Stats podcast, where Devi Parekh and Dhruv Batra talk to AI researchers to try and understand who they are as people, what their life is like, what they think about, what they're insecure about, what they get excited about. Questions that reveal the stories of their day-to-day lives. In this episode, Dhruv talks with Kyunghyun, who's an associate professor in computer science and data science at New York University. Kyunghyun talks about how he prefers to go with the flow when planning his day, his strength being his ability to not cling on to successes, how he strives to show compassion for the disadvantaged, and a lot more. For more information on the podcast and episodes, check out the Humans of AI website linked in the description. And without any further ado, let's get right to the conversation.
Hey, Kyunghyun.
How are you doing?
Good. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. How are you doing? How are things?
Well, I think getting increasingly more bored, but I'm hanging here. Yes. Are you in California or in Atlanta now?
I'm still in California. I'm in La Park.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
My class was fully remote, so it didn't make sense to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay. So
well, thanks for the invitation. Very exciting. Yes.
Yeah. And Kyunghyun, thank you for doing this. This is I'm looking forward to this. So let me tell you what to expect. Welcome to Humans of AI. This is being recorded. I have a sequence of questions. Some are light and may not require much thought. Others may require a bit more consideration, in which case feel free to pause and take your time. We can also skip questions. We don't have to go over all of them. But when in doubt, if you can err on the side of being open, vulnerable, transparent, we would appreciate it.
All right, sounds good.
I've read some of your blog posts, so I don't think you will require much nudging. I think you're already a pretty transparent person.
I am.
Okay, so let's get started.
Okay.
What were you doing right before this call?
Oh, I was writing an email, which is probably what everyone was doing. But in particular, I was actually writing some emails to people that I want to talk to for the first time. So it was pretty fun. It's always an interesting thing to start a new collaboration. And then in particular, I'm trying to work on some new ideas that I haven't really worked on myself. So I'm just kind of, let's say, sending out cold emails to some of the people that I have vaguely, heard of or, met perhaps once or twice. So, usually as professors, we write emails, really, really quickly, often short, and then, without too much of those, how's the weather today there or whatnot and whatnot. But this time, I was actually writing a couple of emails that are very, very carefully written compared to what I've been doing. I was capitalizing all the correct words to capitalize and so on this time. So that's what I was doing, in fact.
Interesting. I can imagine that students might relate to this, particularly given that this is, admission cycle, and so cold emails and reaching out to people you don't know is something that you would relate to. What is your daily routine like?
My daily routine is very, very boring. So I wake up around, let's say 8 or 9, depending on your idea how I feel like in the morning. I grab my coffee. That's actually the one thing is that one of the things that I started to do is to try to make espresso every morning myself. And then that's been going well since the pandemic started. So I have that coffee and then check some emails, and then during the day is pretty usual. I often have one-on-one meetings with my students. That's like 80% of all my meetings. So that part I enjoy a lot. And then one thing I noticed during the pandemic is that we are actually having more talks than usual. I think there is the tendency that everyone is inviting others much more easily, and also people accept the invitations much more casually just because it's possible, right? Or they're more easy to do so. So there are always some talks that I need to attend or that I want to attend. So that takes up a lot of my time. And then I actually started to have dinner quite early, like the 5:30 p.m. and I already have my dinner. And because of pandemic again, I started to cook quite a bit. So I started preparing for my meal, I don't know, like 4:30 or so, while I'm actually having meetings with my students or listening to some of the talks. And after that, this is a weird habit I recently started to have, is to have a half an hour to an hour of nap after my dinner, because dinner is so early.
Hmm.
And then I wake up again, and then start checking some emails or reading some papers or books, or just surfing around, goofing around for another couple of the hours before I say that, yeah, okay, I've done my share of my work today, so I'm going to watch something on Netflix or whatnot, and then go to bed. Very, very boring, I gotta say. Yes.
No, but interesting that you take a nap after dinner. I was almost half expecting you to say nap after lunch, which would sort of
Right.
split your day into half. But interesting.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. I only started to doing so like last summer, so during the pandemic, because my dinner time was increasingly becoming earlier and earlier, and
Hmm.
then I noticed that the after dinner, I tend to eat pretty heavy dinner, and then there's that, like, I don't know, 4 to 5 hours that is before I actually go to bed for and call it a day. What that means is that it's actually pretty many hours. So I
Mhm.
decided that okay, I need to take some rest, but then taking a nap after dinner turned out to be not too bad at all.
Interesting. Interesting.
Mhm.
Um, what is the favorite part of your day?
My favorite part of the day is definitely having one-on-one meetings with my PhD students. That's really the fun part. And also the nap after dinner. I highly recommend you to try it out. It's not bad at all.
I found I discovered naps during the day in the pandemic. I found that
Uh-huh.
like we're
Right.
at home, I can go take a quick nap, but I haven't
Yes.
tried the one after dinner. I suspect I will not wake up.
That's what I thought, but somehow it's actually pretty refreshing. And then in the evening, I think a lot of us have difficulty at the getting enough sleep. But
Hmm.
then in the evening, I feel much refreshed, so that I just focus on whatever I want to do. Even just watching Netflix, I can actually focus on watching Netflix for few hours, and then I can actually get better sleep. I think that
Hmm.
thanks to this post dinner nap, let's call it like that.
Interesting.
Mhm.
And what is the least favorite part of your day?
Oh, the least favorite part of the day. I mean, there are so many of them, but of course, the one thing that I really hate is waking up in the morning. I'm like, I just want to get that another, let's say, half an hour of sleep. And then, often, the least favorite part of my day is actually right before I go to bed, to call it a night or call it a day, is because it almost feels, although I'm pretty sure I get a lot of things done each day, and then I almost feel like I'm actually getting things done that I was supposed to get it done every day, but somehow there's always that lingering feeling that, yeah, I should have done this, or I should have actually done that instead of this, and so on. And then that just bugs me a lot before I fall asleep. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I know what you mean. I do know what you mean. Do you set an alarm in the morning?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I have about 3 alarms set. And then I can only wake up after my fourth alarm that I set after the third alarm goes off.
So that answers my next question, which is, do you snooze your alarm? So it does sound like there's planned snoozing going on.
Oh, yes, yes. Plenty of snoozing. I mean, even for the post-dinner nap, I set the alarm for often like 45 minutes or an hour. But then I always wake up after about an hour and a half, because I just have to snooze it once.
Interesting. Um, are you a planner or do you operate more on gut feeling and you prefer to go with the flow?
Totally gut feeling. I don't really plan. I don't actually keep even the to-do list. I tend to, trust my instinct and the memory, which, it does fail me once a while. But the one of the reasons why I don't plan out is that I just find it really difficult to motivate myself when my to-do list, or I have a list of the things that I know I have to do that I don't enjoy. So I tend to just, let them just float around in the background of my head while I'm focusing on all these things that I like. And then whenever I feel like, okay, so this is the time I really have to spend maybe an hour doing all these uninteresting stuff. And then I kind of randomly pick up those things from the background of my mind and then start working on that. Yes.
Interesting. That would also explain the going to bed and still ruminating through the what else was remaining.
That's a good point. I never thought of. I never made a connection, but it actually does make sense. Yeah, I think that is the reason why I have that least favorite part of my hour of the day right before going to the bed. Yes.
Mm. And do you struggle with procrastination?
Yeah, a lot and a lot. In fact, one of the things that I do whenever I have, let's say, tons of things that I need to do, within a week or so, is that I suddenly go on Amazon or whatever the internet website and then just buy a textbook on a topic that is pretty remotely relevant to what I need to read, and then just start reading them, or at least pretending to read them, because I never actually get to finish any of those textbooks. So that's one of the ways in which I waste a lot of time. And then one weird thing I have is that it actually happens, especially when I need to do something by some deadline that is approaching, and the thing is more interesting. So when I need to actually really finish it off, something that is really uninteresting, I tend to actually focus more easily as the deadline approaches. But when it's the interesting stuff, I don't know why, but somehow my mind starts just wandering around and then start thinking about, maybe I need to learn about the causal inference. And then that's the reason why I bought like 3 or 4 textbooks on the topic, that all of which I've only read about first 2 chapters.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I guess it is a hallmark of an academic that we procrastinate by reading other academic textbooks.
That's a good point. I mean, I think that that's actually one of the reasons why I love being a professor, is that I think that one of the items in our job description is to think about something that you don't have to think about. So I love that.
And do you struggle with time management?
Not really, in a sense that there are sometimes occasions where I drop my ball and then oh my god, I should have done it a week or a month ago. I have forgotten to do so, but that's pretty rare, or I think very uncommon. And then I think that what I know how to do well is that I tend to accept the commitment only if I know I can actually make it in time. I tend to do that. I mean, not that I'm perfect. I'm very far from being perfect, but I don't feel like I'm struggling. Maybe others might think that I'm actually struggling, but I just don't feel like it myself.
Yeah, the world has not yet made you aware that you have a problem, so you don't have a problem.
Exactly, until I know, right? I mean, I don't have a problem.
Yeah. Are you competitive, Kyunghyun?
I'm actually very, very not competitive at all. I really don't think too much about what others do that are similar to what I do, and then I try to stay ahead of them or anything like that. I don't really worry about it. I do worry a lot about what others might think of me. So it's not really about the competition against others, but it's like the competition against myself perceived by others kind of thing. Yeah.
Interesting. Is there a rejection or a failure that hurt particularly bad?
At this point, one thing that used to hurt a lot and then I got completely immune to at the moment is the rejection from NSF. Actually, every single proposal that I submitted to NSF, other than some of the couple of those center proposals where I was like, I don't know, one of the 40 PIs or something like that, every single one of them has been rejected. Not a single dollar came to me out of NSF pockets for my research so far. So that one used to hurt, but now I'm like, it's almost automatic. I mean, okay, I'll write a proposal. It's almost like something that I just need to do, like laundry kind of thing. Except that I know that it's going to be rejected, but it's okay. Some, just like laundry, I'm going to mess up and then I'll have to throw away some of my shirts or something like that, but it's okay.
Interesting. That's a fascinating perspective on it. Yeah. And is there an achievement or a success that felt particularly good?
Let me see. Not really. I tend to cherish every achievement as well as failure I make, and I don't necessarily cling on to any one of them. Although I really loved all the things that have happened that are positive, but not one thing stands out among them.
Mhm. What is one thing that you are worse at than people around you?
Oh, so much. In fact, let me see. So one thing I need to choose one thing. Oh yes, okay. So this is pretty minor. So kind of, let's say, only exercise I used to do is swimming. So I'm not a runner. I actually never have joked in my whole life. I'm not a climber. I've never actually climbed any mountain that requires you to sweat, essentially. I don't really play soccer or football or anything like that. Of course, I did when I was in high school and middle school, because every friend of mine was playing something, so I was just hanging out with them, but not really. Swimming is the only thing that I've enjoyed, and then working out once in a while. Of course, due to the pandemic, everything is shut down. I haven't gone to the swimming pool for now about a year. Actually, exactly a year, I think it's been. Um, but I've actually spent some time learning how to swim and everything, except that the kick turn, the turn that you need to learn to kind of show off that you know how to swim. That one, I think I don't have that kind of balancing bone in my head, at the body or something like that. I just cannot do that. And then that's always killing me, because I've learned how to do butterfly, all those the neat things that I can do. I know how to jump in, and then you have to sprint and everything, but the turn is just killing me. So that one, I think I might actually be the worst among the people who know, or who spend money and time to learn swimming. Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not the worst thing to be worse at than other people.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But for me, swimming actually, the matters, and then the fact that maybe it's just that I haven't spent enough time, but I feel like I have. But once everything comes back to normal, and then I can go back swimming again, I might actually try to learn this once, this time. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say is your biggest strength?
My biggest strength, I think, is connected to your couple of questions earlier about the competitiveness, as well as like being proud of, or the liking one of the successes. Is I'm not competitive, nor I tend to cling on to any one or few of the achievements that I have made. I just tend to be very stable across time. I do get excited a lot about many of these things, but I don't really get attached to any one or few particular stuffs among the achievements that I've made, or even the things that I work on at any moment. So I think that might be the strength. Not overly excited, not overly pessimistic, or being stable.
Yeah, makes sense. Is there a favorite tool or trick or hack that makes your life more convenient or efficient or fun?
Let me see. So fun. I'm also a very boring person, unfortunately. But I think what kind of, let's say, keeps me kind of going is actually not being organized that well. I feel like because I'm not overly excited about anything, or I'm not overly competitive against anybody else, or about anything else. So if I'm even on top of that, if I were very, very organized as well, I might actually end up becoming a very routine person that's going to make me even more boring. So perhaps not organizing my time or anything is probably one way for me to stay sane, I guess.
Interesting.
Mhm.
How do you usually make difficult decisions? Are there certain lines of thinking or mental frameworks that you use?
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, the difficult decisions. This is a weird thing. So I try to simulate or emulate all possible scenarios, and then ultimately I often end up with this kind of weird philosophy that for any difficult decision I need to make, the first kind of decision option that I came to my mind is probably the right one to go. So usually I think about all possible ways in which the choice can go, but then I end up actually choosing the one that I thought of first.
Interesting. And in that case, then how do you fight against recency bias, making sure that you're not leaning towards the last thing you became familiarized with?
Right. Yeah. So what I realized is that there is the issue with the recency bias, but then I started to wonder, because the future is so uncertain, and then that's the reason why these decisions are really difficult to make. And what that means is that we have to make a decision between the bias or variance kind of thing. I decided that the lower variance is better for my mental health, even if there is a bit of a bias. Then having a zero bias, but have high, let's say, variance could be very detrimental for my own sake. So that's the reason why I tend to go for the slightly more bias than variance.
Interesting. That's a good way of thinking about things and using the ideas from machine learning.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Do you have an internal monologue? Do you talk to yourself?
I do. I mean, the worst moment of my day each day, that about half an hour every night before I sleep. That's the part that I actually have quite a bit of monologue with myself, kind of, let's say, essentially blaming myself for whatever I did or whatever I didn't that day, and then trying to argue for or against why I did it, why I didn't do that. So yeah, that's perhaps the only time I have that kind of monologue, but otherwise not really. Yeah.
And in what language is this monologue?
Yeah, that's so. Let me see. So it depends on which language I was using when I was doing or did not doing. So for instance, when it's related to my work or the research or science, it tends to be English. But if it's about I should have called my mom, or I should have called my family or friends, then depending on what language they use, but usually my mom is Korean, so I would speak Korean with her. So then in that case, I actually talk to myself in Korean. So I think there is context dependent.
Context dependent. Interesting. Yeah. And are you a visual thinker? Do you have pictures, moving pictures, symbols in your mind?
No, not really. I'm very, let's say, textual.
Yes. Interesting. And what do you tend to think about when you're not actively trying to think about something? What goes on the back burner?
Oh, yeah.
To the extent that you're aware of it.
Right. So I don't know. I feel like so perhaps the reason why I couldn't answer what are the things that what are the successes or the achievement that I am fond of is because when I'm not really thinking about anything in particular, my brain just suddenly starts going over all those, let's say, mistakes or the embarrassing stuff that I've done, like ever since I was like 7 or 8 years old. I mean, I think one of the things that my brain just gets to is, when was it? Like sometime I think I was like 6 or something like that in the kindergarten, and then there was some kind of event at the kindergarten, and then that event was some kind of birthday party of all those the kids in the kindergarten or something like that. And then as part of that event or party, like the one boy, one girl, they kind of paired up, and then you had to do some kind of marching in the building or something like that. And then I was matched to one of the girls in the kindergarten. And then I feel like I wasn't, somehow for some random reason, wasn't really fond of walking together with her on the hallway or something like that. And I did not express it like explicitly. I mean, I'm pretty sure I couldn't even do that, but just I had that. I didn't look happy. I feel like I if I remember correctly, right? And then that one just kills me, and the fact that what did I know, and then why did I hate this girl so much that I didn't even feel come out happy in that kind of one of the happiest moments in the kindergarten years. And then those things just it comes to me. I'm like, oh no, stop. I got then that's when I open up the Netflix and start watching some random stuff. Yes.
Interesting. Your replay buffer is filled with like high perceived loss examples.
Exactly. Perhaps a bit too much.
Yeah. Okay. how do you recharge or take a break?
Yeah, I mean, I I play games, so I have PlayStation, so I love playing games. And also, so this is also a bit of a pandemic thing. So many things have changed since the pandemic, and then all those lockdowns started. Is that I actually really love watching those, like the video clips of cooking, in particular, like steaks or the barbecues or some exotic, like the cooking from the different corners of the world, like the how to cook this, the what was it, like the lamb, the leg in the some forest in Azerbaijan or something like that. And then I watched those video clips a lot on YouTube as well as Facebook video. And then sometimes I actually tried it out myself. So the one day I was watching how to cook lamb, and then I've never actually cooked lamb myself. The thing is that, for instance, in Korea, I'm not even sure if we have lamb naturally to start with. Like I don't think we have sheep or goat in Korea, naturally growing. So I never actually tried lamb actually ever when I was in Korea. And then certainly I've never tried cooking it myself. So, the one day I was just watching one of those videos, and then I was like, oh, I gotta try it out. I just really like literally ran out, grabbed some lamb. I'm not even sure which part of the lamb that was, but I bought something, pour all those spices according to the video clip that I watched, and then cooked it. The first time I tried, it was very, very horrible, but it was a pretty refreshing experience that kind of energized me a bit. So maybe like there's something I recharge by doing something that has nothing to do with what I need to do, I guess. Yeah.
Which makes sense. I'm sure it's a good break.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Are you happy with the number of close friends that you have?
Um, yes, in a sense that I do have a few small number of, let's say, close friends that I can easily talk to and so on. But I'm a bit less happy in that that group has been evolving quite rapidly in my case, because I've been moving around quite a bit, and then I've lost touch with the many of the close friends from early years. And I have now that you mention it, actually, I feel really bad that I haven't really checked on any of them from, let's say, from my days in Korea or Finland during this pandemic era. And I think the people tend to crave for the human touch and there's some kind of contact. I definitely should actually reach out to some of them. But for the people that I talk to more regularly, yeah, I'm pretty happy. It's not a large but a small clique of my friends, but they tend to be all pretty generous, very kind, and then they tend to be transparent. At least I feel like they're being transparent, which makes it easier for me to be transparent, although I'm probably transparent even without others being transparent to me. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about it, although yeah, I really look forward to hanging out in person much more frequently without having to worry about COVID-19 and so on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What are you insecure about?
Oh, I mean, I did so many things actually. So the more recently, one of the things that I'm most insecure about is, it's a weird thing, is that the what what I'm going to do for the next, I don't know, like 3 or 4 decades. If we believe that the life expectancy is going to stay at this level, then I probably have, I don't know, 30, 40 years. And I've enjoyed doing what I'm doing, coming up with these ideas, trying to work it out together with my students or my collaborators, report it by writing papers or releasing the code. It's been all fun, and then it's been now slightly more than a decade. And then I do see that there are those amazing people in our field who have been working on these ideas or the topics for the, let's say, I don't know, 3 or 4 or even 5 decades of their lifetime, and they're all amusing. But I'm a bit insecure whether, first of all, whether I'll be able to actually keep on doing this for another 4 decades. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. And also, even if I do, whether I'm going to like it, and also after about 3 decades after, look back and like, it was fun, but at the what I end up with is all these at the papers that 99% of which no one, including myself, don't read anymore. So that's the thing that really makes me a bit insecure about, is this what I want to do for the next 3-4 decades? Because at the end of the day, I've been working on this for 10 years or so. But then I've been at NYU for now 6 years, and then before that in Montreal and so on. And then until now, it's been like 3 to 5 years of the cycle, and then I'll work on something really, really hard, and then move on to a new place, and then even if it's related, something new really hard. But it looks like this maybe fork in a road where I need to decide whether, well, that time of my life is done. I'm going to just continue, in one direction, in one place, or I need to start something, try something new. And then I'm very, very insecure about making this decision. And also, if I do so, then what are the alternatives there?
Yeah, I can. This is not one of those things I can totally relate. Where,
I'm actually glad that I'm not the only one who's insecure about this. Thank you.
but it's also that, yeah, you early on in your career, you can have shorter cycles, and you can afford to have in shorter cycles misses, and you can move around. And at some point of time, I guess there's that line in Moneyball, right? Like, we're all told we can't play the Little League anymore. So you.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Okay. Do you feel like an imposter in any context?
Oh yeah, big time. And then I think it's because as I said earlier, I'm not competitive against others, but I'm very competitive against myself, how myself is, how I'm perceived by others. And then every time I think about it, I run a lot of the kind of, let's say, counterfactual the, let's say, like the reasoning or the simulation of myself at various points in my earlier, let's say, years. And then every time I think about it, I'm like, oh, every moment I'm like, how lucky I was in making, often forced some choice that turned out to be really, really nice now looking back. And then I always do that counterfactual and then say that now, had I not been, let's say, push it toward that direction, or had I not been in a situation by random chance, because for instance, I was born as a male in a mid-class Korean family, with my father being a professor in the university, and raised in Seoul and everything. That's a huge amount of kind of, let's say, luck that came with me that I did not choose nor had to fight for, right? And then realizing that in a counterfactual world where I was not in that kind of situation for all possible aspects that I imagine, I feel like I probably wouldn't have made it up to this point. And all the other scenarios that I run kind of, let's say, end up being pretty bad, or the suboptimal in many regards. And then that actually makes me feel really insecure and feel like an imposter when I talk to other people who weren't necessarily in a similar kind of situation as I was in, and still they are doing so well, and then almost always better than how I'm doing. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm right there, how did I actually end up here? And then what am I supposed to do? And then that's probably related to the being insecure about the next 3 or 4 decades. Will this luck that I had in my, I don't know, first 15 to 20 years of my life continue to keep me going for the next, I don't know, 3 decades? I'm not sure, right? Yeah, so I do feel like an imposter quite a lot. And then it's pretty stable, so nothing that dramatic, because I feel like that every moment. So it's not like I feel, oh, suddenly I really feel bad like tonight or today or yesterday, but it's generally so, yes.
Mm. Do you think you're average, below average, or above average happy compared to the people around you?
I think I'm happier than on average, or the most of, let's say majority, let's say half of the people I know. Let's put it like that. Yeah, why am I happy? I think that's because I'm not organized. I think I can afford to be happy even in a even when I'm probably not in a situation to be happy, because it's really difficult for me to realize that I'm in a pretty deep, at the hole that I won't be able to get out that easily because I'm not well organized.
I see. I see. What is something surprising about you? Something that the rest of us may not guess?
Oh, I guess being transparent makes it a bit difficult for people to be surprised.
True.
But
True.
yeah. Let me see. Yeah, not really. Nothing that people would find surprising. Oh, I mean, the one possible thing that people might find surprising is that I'm actually a great. I can cook steak like amazingly well. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I can really cook it well. And then everyone that I have invited over and then cooked steak in during the past 1 year, every single one of them praised my steak. So that one, I think that could be a bit surprising. Yes.
Yeah.
And also, I guess the another surprising thing is that I actually own a printer plus scanner. So a lot of people actually just stop by at my place to use the scanner. And in particular, it's gotten worse or better since the university started to restrict the people coming into the offices and so on. So yeah, I mean, that could be one thing that is surprising and also very useful information for people who live in New York City.
Yeah, yeah. I did not realize the value of printers till
Yeah,
I just got
exactly,
locked in
right.
at home. Yeah.
Precisely, yes.
And what is one thing about the world that surprises you?
Oh yeah, I mean, like the word that I find it really surprising how people are very, I don't know, like not compassionate about other people, in a sense that I don't know, sometimes let's say there are some situations where some people were taken advantage of by other people, and then at once in a while what I see is that the larger portion than I expected of the population actually do tend to stand by next to a someone who took advantage of the other, and who often have a bigger power or better off. And in my opinion, whenever there is some kind of conflict happens between two groups of people or two people in particular, and then when the details are murky, or there could be some debatable points about this conflict, I feel like the default stance that we should take, or at least I strive to take, is to stand next to the people who are like underrepresented, or the generally socially disadvantaged. And but what always find very surprising and a bit sad as well is that it turned out that this is not necessarily held by majority of people. In fact, the majority of people that I see, probably, hopefully, it is because the news articles tends to emphasize things that are worse about the world. A majority of people tend to actually stand by next to rich people, like the better off people and the better represented people. So that's the thing that surprises me and also makes me sad about the world. Yeah.
Mm.
That's
What do you? Yeah, it is. It is unfortunate.
Mhm.
What is something that you've changed your mind about recently or in distant past?
Oh yeah, I mean, they changed my mind about. Um, well, let's see. I don't. So it I apparently well, now that I think about it, since you asked, I guess I'm pretty stubborn in some sense. Although the one thing that we just talked about, that about the being compassionate about the the people who are not in the position of power or something like that. Until I never really thought about that until about, I don't know, 5 6 years ago. And then I guess what I realized is, I guess once I left Korea, because in Korea I was in a pretty good the situation. As I said, I was born to a professor father. My mother used to be a high school teacher. And my family is pretty well off. I mean, especially now they are pretty well off. I was raised in Seoul, which is the capital of Korea. So, and then I was educated pretty well. I did my undergrad in KAIST, which is one of the best universities in Korea. In fact, some might say that one of the best universities in East Asia or in general. So I never actually had a chance to look at all these different corners of the society and so on. So whenever people talk to me about what I just said about how the society is not really being on the side of the people we should protect and so on, I never gave much thought about that before. But once I started to leave the kind of comfort zone I was in, and then I started looking around, and in particular over the past 5 years or so, I think that I've started to see more and more about all those corners of the society, which actually has helped me change the mode of operation. And also it connects to the fact that I'm now tenured, a bit more secure in terms of jobs and so on, is that before, when I'm invited to give a talk or join some kind of panel or some kind of events out, it was automatically yes. And then I love to be there. I'm excited to be there. But these days I'm doing less of that. And then whenever I can think of other people who can benefit better from joining those forums or the panels or something like that, I always kind of, let's say, started to forward all those requests rather than to accept them more. So, well, that said, I should have actually forwarded your invitation to those people as well. But my guess is that you've been actually contacting a broad set of people anyway. So, and then it sounded so fun to be on this. But yeah, so nothing that dramatically changed it in a sense that I flipped my stance from one to not the other, but I started to form more opinions that I never even thought were the opinions that I would have formed back then. Yes.
Yeah. And you're right. We're certainly trying. We're trying to reach out to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is there a bad habit you're working on overcoming?
Oh wait. Bad habit. I mean, a lot of bad habits. I mean, some bad habits. I mean, I overcome. Like for instance, until a couple of years ago or so, actually a bit more than that. I used to be like heavy smoker. I kind of completely quit. I don't smoke at all. I mean, I haven't even thought about it. It was actually, I should have used that as the answer to the past one. I really flipped overnight, essentially, almost.
Interesting.
So that one, yeah. So that's, I guess, the one bad habit I have already overcome. But of course, there are many other bad habits. So, for instance, bad habits. Yeah, bad habits as in oh my God, I slack too much when I need to take a rest, and then I watch Netflix too much. I watch all those cooking video clips way too much. Yeah, it's a bit ridiculous amount of cooking clips that I watch these days. So I probably need to learn to kind of stop watching those things when I feel like I started to repeatedly watching the same thing over and over. And then otherwise, I don't really have much of the habits to start with, I guess. Well, drinking, but I think I don't drink that much. Perhaps a bit more than average, but not like a top K or something like this.
How do you imagine your retirement? Those 4 decades out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I haven't thought about it that much because I guess I don't have much of the hobbies or habits or the anything beside my daily routines. But what I want is that I want to retire, or by the time I retire, I hope to have actually contributed to the the society or humanity or whatnot, that I feel like I've actually done something something that is tangible, more tangible than how we scientists we tend to contribute a lot to society. Some of them they become tangible over time. Some of them are tangible from the beginning, but often we let the society to follow up and make things tangible eventually, because our job is to try to look at the frontier and then trying to see what are the directions that we feel like the science and the society need to pursue. But I feel like one thing that I want to have achieved by the time of my retirement is to, in fact, be also create something tangible myself as well. Not sure exactly what that's going to be, but I feel like if I hadn't done that by that time, then I'll be like so sad, and I'll probably have a retirement of my job and my life all together, because I'll be sitting on my office because, oh, I haven't done anything, built anything tangible. I need to work on it, and then done.
I, given the way you're going, Kyunghyun, I seriously doubt that you're going to be looking back 4 decades from now with that sort of a concern.
I hope so. I might be actually listening to this 4 decades later and saying that, oh no, I haven't actually succeeded in it. But we'll see. Yes.
Do you think about the future much on a 5 to 10 year scale?
Not 10-year scale, 5-year scale. I do think about it once in a while. And then not for my own, but the 5 years of the time in terms of my own, as in like not my daily routine, but the 5 years later, what are the things that I want to be, what are the alternatives that I could think of? So I do think about it quite a bit. Like maybe 5 years down the road, I might actually work on something completely different. So for instance, I might actually not be a professor anymore. Then what do I do? Would I actually work as some kind of director of the research center somewhere? That's a possible alternative. And then I try to simulate what that's going to be like, because I feel like my default mode of the operation is pretty stable, and that won't change that much over the next 5 years of time frame. So I try to think a lot about the alternative path that I could take, and then how that those paths would lead, what kind of, let's say, situation in 5 years that I'm going to end up had I followed some of those paths.
Mm-hmm. And on a closer time horizon, when do you think the world will open back up post-COVID?
My guess, okay, so my hope, I guess the hope, closer to hope than guess, is that the sometime early next year, I guess. That's my suspicion, which I think is fine. And then my guess is that it's going to be more or less like we'll have to live together with it, just like flu, except that it's going to be a bit more serious. But my hope stems from the fact that a lot of, let's say, the technologies that have been used to create these vaccines and so on were the results of the science from 70s, 80s, and early 90s. What that means is that we still have a lot of, let's say, our kind of, let's say, weapons against COVID-19 and other pandemic or the infectious disease that all these amazing scientists, biologists, chemists, and so on have been and continue to work on. And then I'm very hopeful when I think about how we're going to overcome this ongoing pandemic, thanks to the science, and how we're going to tackle the upcoming future pandemics, as well as the other crises that we're going to run into. When I think about the science that is being done, well, of course, when I think about how the political systems or the social systems have coped with all these ongoing pandemic as well as other crises, my hope kind of disappears quite rapidly. But I think the science has been doing well, and I have a pretty good trust in it. Yes. So next year.
Do you think there's a point to life and our existence?
No, nothing too particular about individual life. I think if I had to, think of something in order to, let's say, tell my niece who just entered her primary school or so on, if I had to tell her something, then I'll say that the point would be to just figuring out the things that we don't know, just because so the curiosity might be the only thing that I can imagine as the point of life. But I don't think there is anything that is so special about individual lives as compared to other things.
More profound questions. Pineapple on pizza, yummy or an abomination?
Very yummy, very yummy. Yes. I mean, so what I think is that I'm very the counter conservative in a lot of things, and then I feel like our job as the human beings is to be curious about everything and then try them out and then be open to new ideas and so on. And I've had my share of pizza over my lifetime. I think like all those, let's say, Pizza Hut, Domino pizza type of the pizza, all the way to the Chicago deep dish to the Italian pizzas and so on. I've had my share, and then pineapples go really, really well with good pizzas. Yes. And then I'm very open to this. And then this is one of the things that I can really, like, say, have a huge debate and won't back off. Yes.
Great. Great. What are some traits that you found common across some of the best collaborators or colleagues that you've worked with?
Yeah, I noticed that the confidence. So people that I admire, I respect, I work together with, they are very confident about what they know. And then the reason why I think confidence is really important and I like is that they are also very confident about what they know that others know better than what they know. So that makes them much easier to talk about, and then come to the same page on any kind of topic that we talk about. So they tend to listen better to the experts, and then they also talk to other experts better about the topic that they are more knowledgeable about. And then people who are less confident or they're not confident, they tend to actually pretend to know too much, and they don't listen. So I think it's actually the confidence in knowledge or something like that. Yeah.
Calibration, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And do you find that you can spot this trait early?
I think so. At least I feel like I can actually spot that whenever those people start talking about machine learning. I think I noticed. Okay, that sounds a bit wrong. And then I know that they are saying something wrong, but they are also not asking other people about it. So that's when I noticed that they have some insecurity about what they know, and then they try to pretend or they put some kind of authority they get from another item, another stuff for this kind of whatever the things that they are talking about that they don't know. So yeah, it is for certain topics. Yeah, I think I can guess pretty easily. Yes.
What is some of the best advice you've gotten or given?
So it was 2014, I think the summer or fall. I was in Montreal as a postdoc with Joshua Bengio, and then back then, if I remember correctly, most of the people who were at the lab back then with me, or all the people who were working on toward PhD in this particular neural network, deep neural network, really, I think that none of them actually ended up being a professor. They all went to work at Google, Microsoft, and it was like the beginning of the boom. So everyone was happy that they were getting tons of money working at those places. But then I wanted to see if it's possible to become a faculty and then to be a professor. I never thought about it before that time, before fall 2014. I started to think about it after talking with some people. And then one day I knocked on the door of Yasha's, and then I asked Yasha, so Yasha, what do you think about being a professor? I'm thinking about what I should do after finishing my postdoc years here. And then he just really told me just one thing, is that it's the best job in the world. And now that I think, and then I was like, okay, that sounds good, so I'll do that. And then the same thing was repeated by Yan Le-kun a few months later or a year later. And these were really, I think, the great advice, because back then everyone was trying to give me a detailed write down of the pros and cons about going to the academia, going to the industry, and so on. And then looking at those pros and cons lists doesn't really help you make a decision, because it's a difficult decision. But that is the best job in the world. That actually was the advice based on which I decided to apply for the faculty position. I didn't even apply to any of the industry position back then. And then so far, I really like it. Yeah.
That's great. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you chose this route.
Thank you.
I've had the opportunity to interact with you at various points of times, and people, and especially your students, speak highly of you. So that's great.
Happy to hear that. Thanks.
So why did you agree to do this interview with me?
So I think I listened to every single one of the interview done by Devi earlier with the same topic, and I thought it was really refreshing in a sense that we get to hear about like what kind of research they do a lot, perhaps a bit overly so due to this pandemic and remote talks. And then when I was listening to what kind of questions Debbie was asking, and then what kind of answers she was able to bring out of all these people, I thought it was really refreshing. And then I kind of got to know a lot about the people that I thought I knew them before, but apparently I knew only kind of academic or the work side of them. So I thought it was really refreshing. And then I thought, joining this and then trying to show the other side of me as well, thanks to you, will make me perhaps a bit more accessible to the students or the other potential collaborators to just reach out and then talk with me, because they now know more about me than before, right? Other than the papers that I wrote. So that was the reason. And also, of course, in fact, more important reason is that because it was you who emailed me. That was true. Yes.
Sure. Those were all the questions I have, Kyunghyun. Is there anything that we didn't cover that is a particularly important aspect of your life that you think we should get to?
No, I mean, those were so amazing questions. I mean, I should have actually asked you back a bit, because I want to hear about you. But hopefully, at the end of this thing, Debbie and you two will actually interview each other with the same set of questions, so that all the listeners as well as me and other the interviewees will be able to know about you two as well, even further. Yes.
Yeah,
That'll be my request.
I've already done Devi's interview.
Okay, you have.
So
Great.
there's a second cohort and like a second set of interviews that we'll put out, and Devi's is one of them.
Nice. Looking forward to that. Yes. Yeah, I mean, so, I mean, when will this go public or online? Do you have a timeline?
I think it might take me another month or so. This is a similar sized cohort, about somewhere in the 16 to 18 people range. I'm about four. This is the fourth one that I'm done with. I'm still scheduling some of the others.
So looking forward to listening to all those the interviews. It was really fun listening to the interviews by Debbie. So looking very forward to it. And thanks for doing this. It's really informative as well as fun.
Yeah, no, thank you, Kyunghyun. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much.
This is wonderful.
Okay. Yeah, let's catch up hopefully in person soon.
I hope so. 2021 Jan is your prediction. We'll hopefully.
Precisely. Yes, we'll do that. I mean, I wouldn't mind meeting in person earlier, but I think that's my expectation. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. See you later then. Have a nice day.
Kyunghyun.